In a quiet forest near Stopfenreuth, Austria, right by the floodplains of the Danube River, stand some old stone ruins. For hundreds of years, locals called the place the Ödes Schloss, the deserted castle. Its real story was a mystery. What was this forgotten structure hidden in the woods? People guessed it was a medieval castle, or maybe a fortress from when Austria fought the Ottoman Empire centuries ago. But the truth remained hidden until a clue surfaced in 1850. An investigator named Edward von Sacken looked at the ruins and thought they might be a forward defense post. He even found Roman-style bricks, some stamped by the Roman army's 15th Legion. But without definite proof, the mystery remained unsolved. That all changed in 2024. Working closely with the Carnuntum Archaeological Park and supported by institutions like the Donau-Auen National Park and the Federal Monuments Office, archaeologists from the Austrian Archaeological Institute returned to the site. Employing modern archaeological excavation, alongside geophysical investigations conducted earlier that year, they began meticulously uncovering the overgrown walls. What they found finally proved von Sacken's early hunch was correct. The deserted castle wasn't medieval or Ottoman. It wasn't just any Roman building. It was a special kind called a bridgehead fort, Brückenkopfkastell, the first of its kind ever confirmed on Austrian soil. It wasn't safely behind the empire's mighty Danube border, but brazenly beyond it, in territory the Romans considered barbaricum. This discovery forces us to rethink the very edge of the Roman world here. The fort sat about 4 kilometers north of the Danube, across from the huge Roman city of Carnuntum. Carnuntum was a massive military base, the capital city for the Roman province, home to maybe 50,000 people, and even had a Roman fleet headquarters. It was a powerhouse on the Roman frontier. Carnuntum controlled the Danube route and the important Amber Road, a trade highway connecting the Baltic Sea all the way down to Italy. The Stopfenreuth fort likely guarded the river crossing, probably a busy ferry point, for this valuable trade route. Roman legions were based in Carnuntum. First the 15th Apollinaris, later the 14th Gemina, stayed for centuries. Roman emperors visited. Marcus Aurelius led military campaigns from there. Septimius Severus was declared emperor there. The critical conference of emperors in 308 AD took place there. It was a bustling international city, home to diverse religions, including worshippers of the popular soldier god Jupiter Dolichanes from Syria and Mithras from Persia. But the little Stopfenreuth fort tells a more harrowing story, born from dangerous times. It was first built around 170 to 180 AD during the brutal Marcomannic Wars. This was when the famous philosopher-emperor Marcus Aurelius had to fight desperately to stop tribes who had swarmed across the Danube. Building a fort outside the border during such chaos suggests the Romans were scrambling, trying to stabilize the frontier, watch enemy movements, or launch counterattacks. Then, things went quiet in the fort's archaeological record for about a century. Around 260 AD, it was rebuilt or renovated. This wasn't a time of imperial strength. It was the height of the 3rd century crisis under Emperor Gallienus. The Roman Empire was fragmenting, the economy was shaky, plagues were spreading, and enemies were pushing from all sides. Rebuilding this exposed fort during such turmoil shows it was still considered strategically vital for defense, controlling the river crossing or managing relations with nearby tribes. Soldiers stationed there would have faced harsh conditions, relying on Carnuntum across the river for supplies. Finds like pottery, coins, bronze items, and bricks stamped by both the 14th and 15th legions give us glimpses into their lives. It was a small, vulnerable outpost on the edge. When was it finally abandoned? Not immediately after the 260 AD rebuild. Archaeologists found evidence that some activity continued at the site into the late 300s AD. Its ultimate demise seems tied to the fate of Carnuntum itself, which slowly declined in importance during that same late 4th century period. As the main city faded, the small outpost likely lost its purpose. Did the Danube River also change its path nearby? Scientists are currently studying ancient river sediments, working with universities in Vienna to see if the river's shifts played a part. Eventually, though, the fort was deserted. The forest grew over it, hiding it for centuries, and so it truly became the deserted castle. Now, modern science, detailed excavation, and geophysical surveys has brought its story back to light. The remarkably preserved walls, standing up to 2.65 meters, over 8 feet high in places, and the uncovered corner tower show Roman building skill. This discovery confirms that the Roman frontier was not just a line on a map. It was a deeper, more complex zone, sometimes reaching further than we thought, with outposts built for specific reasons, even during times of crisis. Rome pushed across rivers, sometimes perhaps driven by reaction and necessity as much as strength. Later, the empire increasingly turned inward, consolidating behind great river frontiers like the Rhine and Danube, seeking security in defined borders. But strong borders, like walls, can function in two ways. They protect, but they can also isolate. As Rome focused internally, its fortified lines sometimes became bottlenecks. Connection could dwindle. And crucially, the world beyond those borders didn't stand still. It continued to change and evolve. Eventually, on many frontiers, Rome was no longer the dominant force, but instead just one part of a shifting landscape, and its isolated model became harder to sustain. The deserted castle near Stopfenreuth tells a story beyond its original purpose. It's a microcosm of empire, an ancient warning etched in the earth that no power, no matter how mighty, is immune to overreach, decline, and the dangerous illusion of permanent control. And perhaps the greatest danger isn't during outward expansion, but in the moment a civilization decides to turn its back on the world outside its gates. Thanks for watching Strange Obscure Stories. We will see you on our next adventure.